In 2018, two official portraits got worldwide attention. Kehinde Wiley's painting of Barack Obama shows him seated against a dense green background. He looks alert and dignified. Amy Sherald's portrait of Michelle Obama places her against a soft grey field. She looks calm and composed. The images were shared everywhere and started a lot of conversation. People reacted in different ways. Some stopped to stare at Wiley's details, the plants, the bright colors, the way the pose references older European portrait styles but replaces those figures with black bodies. Others lingered on Sherald's quieter approach, the flat, soft background, the smooth gray skin tones, the way the portrait pulls your attention into the face and posture more than the environment. Both works did something important. They made official portraiture reflect people who weren't often shown in that way before. They brought black bodies into a space that historically excluded them, but they did it differently. Before we get into the video, kindly hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps this channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you thoughtful art stories like this one. Now let's get into it. Wiley uses drama and pattern to make a statement. His paintings are big and can feel celebratory. Sherald uses restraint. She simplifies everything so the viewer spends time with the person rather than the setting. That difference matters because it shapes how people see the subject. Wiley's style reads like a public announcement. Look at this person, recognize their power. Sherald's style reads like an invitation. Look closer, notice the person's presence and their quiet strength. So the question, who paints better, isn't just about technique. It's about what you want from a portrait. Do you want something that commands the room or something that asks you to slow down and reflect? Both approaches give us something we didn't have before, and that's why this comparison matters. Not to pick a winner right away, but to understand what each artist adds to the way we see people. Kehinde Wiley was born in Los Angeles in 1977 and grew up in South Central, a neighborhood with a lot of visible life, energy, and contradictions. Early on, he spent time in museums and galleries and noticed something obvious and uncomfortable. The faces on the big, important paintings were almost always white and elite. That absence felt like a message about who belonged in history. Instead of accepting that silence, Wiley decided to change the picture. He began making portraits that put contemporary black men and women into the same visual language once reserved for kings, generals, and saints. That decision became the core of his practice. Wiley doesn't simply paint portraits. He stages interventions in art history. He borrows the poses, scales, and formal codes of European Old Master painting, the way a body is arranged, the tilt of a head, the grandeur of a stance, and replaces the historical subjects with people from today's streets and neighborhoods. The result looks familiar because of its structure, but it surprises because the subject refuses to be anonymous. Wiley's sitters are often young black men and women photographed in casual or street poses, then transformed into monumental, carefully composed figures on canvas. The effect is deliberate, to insist that these faces be seen with the weight and dignity traditionally given to elites. Visually, Wiley's paintings are dense and bold. Patterned backgrounds often collide with the figure. Flowers, wallpaper-like motifs, and decorative elements surround or frame the sitter so closely that the space between background and body becomes active. That too muchness isn't accidental. It's a strategy. If history relegated some people to the margins, then fill the frame until they can't be ignored. These patterned surfaces do more than decorate. They create a visual tension that forces the viewer to negotiate the figure and its setting at the same time. Technically, Wiley works in highly finished oil. His surfaces are smooth, detailed, and highly controlled. Skin has a polished sheen, fabrics read tactilely, and every decorative motif receives meticulous attention. He runs a studio and often works with assistants, a practice that echoes the workshop systems of the past. He photographs his sitters, stages compositions, then translates those photographic studies into large-scale paintings. The craft is precise, multiple layers, careful modulation of light, and a clear command of glazing and finish to achieve a luminous, almost sculptural surface. Wiley's method raises questions about authorship and process. He borrows the workshop model of historical studios while updating it for contemporary practice. Some critics point to the use of assistants and a formulaic approach to background and pose as weaknesses. Others argue that his use of collaborative studio labor is itself a continuation of a centuries-old tradition, and that the artist's vision remains the driving force. What's harder to dispute is the effect. His paintings are attention-grabbing. They draw people in, and once you look closely, they bring questions about representation, power, and whose stories are shown in public collections. Commercially and institutionally, Wiley's career reflects the broad impact of his work. He moved from street projects and smaller shows to major museum exhibitions and high-profile commissions. His portrait of Barack Obama, shown to a global audience, changed the conversation about official portraiture and how contemporary identity can be represented in national institutions. Galleries and collectors responded, and Wiley's market success put his work in major collections and high-value auction contexts. Beyond sales, he has used his platform to create projects that extend his practice into community and international spaces, including residency programs and public commissions aimed at broadening access and shifting who gets to be visible. Artistically, Wiley's contribution is straightforward and significant. He reclaims the formal language of history painting and redirects it as a tool for visibility. By placing everyday black subjects into the visual lineage of European elites, he forces a reconsideration of art historical narratives. His paintings ask viewers to look again at what counts as worthy subject matter and who gets canonical recognition. At the same time, Wiley's approach is not just corrective, it's performative. He stages presence in a way that is theatrical and unapologetic. Whether you respond to that as empowering or excessive will depend on your taste and the questions you bring to the work. Some will see reclamation and justice, others will see spectacle. Both responses are part of the conversation his work creates. In short, Wiley's practice blends deep technical skill with a clear political aim. He borrows the form and finish of the past to rewrite who appears in the pictures we call history. His paintings are carefully made, visually loud, and institutionally disruptive. They operate on multiple levels, as portraits of individuals, as public statements about representation, and as cultural corrections that demand the frame be shared differently. For many viewers and younger artists, that combination of craft, scale, and social purpose is exactly what makes his work feel urgent and necessary. Then there's Amy Sherald, born in Georgia in 1973 and grew up in the American South. Her path into art felt quieter and more inward than some of her peers. Where Kehinde Wiley stages scenes that feel public and theatrical, Sherald's work takes a slower, more private approach. Her paintings don't shout, they stop you. She pares portraiture down to essentials, a person, their face, a posture, and a calm space around them, and asks viewers to sit with that stillness. One of Sherald's most recognizable decisions is to paint skin in shades of gray instead of using naturalistic brown tones. That choice surprised a lot of people at first, and it still causes debate. But Sherald has explained that the gray is intentional. It's a way of stepping away from color as an immediate marker of race so that the viewer can focus on personhood, character, and expression. The gray isn't an erasure, it's a tool to shift attention from pigment to presence. That idea, that you can separate who someone is from how they are colored, underlies much of her work. Her compositional choices support that idea. Sherald typically paints her sitters against flat, uncluttered backgrounds in soft pastels, pale pinks, mint greens, muted blues. Those backgrounds don't tell a story, they make space for one. They isolate the figure so that posture, hands, facial expression, and clothing become the main language of the painting. Where Wiley fills the frame with patterns and symbols, Sherald removes visual noise. That removal forces the viewer to notice subtler things. The way someone holds their head, the tension in a hand, the quiet confidence of a gaze. Because she limits visual elements, every small detail in a Sherald painting becomes meaningful. Clothing choices, for example, are rarely accidental. A patterned jacket, a plain shirt, a bright sneaker. These are cues to personality, memory, or cultural reference. Sherald uses fashion and gesture to communicate individuality. Her figures often feel contemporary and specific, not anonymous archetypes. Even when a sitter's face may look distant, their clothes and posture tell a story about identity and taste. Technically, Sherald's work is controlled and restrained. Her brushwork reads smooth and deliberate. She builds surfaces that feel calm rather than textured. The paint is worked carefully to avoid flashy effects. Gloss and shine are not the point. Instead, she uses measured tones and careful transitions so that the face and form emerge through restraint. That technique supports the conceptual aim. The painting's understatement makes the subject's humanity the central claim. Her portrait of Michelle Obama is a clear example of how that approach functions in public life. When the portrait was unveiled, it surprised many viewers because it did not follow the usual codes of official portraiture. There was no throne, no opulent setting, no symbolic trappings. Instead, Michelle Obama appears poised, composed, and uncluttered, a figure of quiet authority. That restraint was interpreted by many as radical, a reminder that power does not have to perform loudly to be legitimate. For others, the lack of ornament felt unexpected in the context of presidential portraiture. Either way, the portrait expanded what people expect from official images. Critics and viewers have reacted to Sherald's work in different ways. Many praise her for inventing a new visual language for Black portraiture, one that centers dignity, interior life, and the ordinary moments that reveal character. Her approach opens space for nuanced depictions of Black subjects that are not framed through stereotype, sensationalism, or tokenism. In museums and collections, her paintings suggest a different model of representation, one that values quiet dignity as much as spectacle. But there are also critiques. Some viewers ask whether the gray skin might flatten racial specificity or risk abstraction that removes material realities. Others worry that the calmness of her images can feel emotionally distant to some audiences. Sherald's response to such critiques has been consistent. The gray is not denial of race, but a way to redirect attention to personhood and story. Whether you accept that framing depends on what you expect a portrait to do. On the market side, Sherald's rise has been rapid and notable. Her works have achieved high auction prices, including a record sale for a living African-American female artist. She is represented by a major international gallery, and her paintings are now in important collections. That institutional and market recognition reflects how her visual language speaks to both collectors and curators who are looking for new models of representation that also hold their value in the market. Beyond prices and galleries, Sherald's influence is visible in a new generation of portrait painters who are exploring minimal backgrounds, restrained palettes, and psychologically focused sitters. Her work has shown that there is a strong audience for portraits that prioritize intimacy and reflection over grand narratives. For many viewers, Sherald's paintings feel like an invitation to slow down, to look carefully, and to meet a person on their own terms. If Wiley's paintings claim public space and historical visibility through spectacle, Sherald's claim is quieter but no less powerful. In short, Sherald's practice is a study in control and clarity. She pares down visuals so viewers are forced to look at the person, not at props or symbols. Her grey skin tones, soft backgrounds, and careful craftsmanship together form a consistent strategy to make portraiture that honors subjectivity, resists spectacle, and asks us to listen rather than look away. That quiet insistence is exactly why her work has resonated so widely, both emotionally and institutionally, and why she occupies a distinct place in contemporary painting. Both artists, in their own way, reconstruct art history. Kehinde Wiley reclaims its stage. Amy Sherald rewrites its script. Wiley paints power. Sherald paints presence. He resurrects the grandeur of blackness in public space, while she reveals its tenderness in private space. Together, they complete each other's sentence in the story of contemporary portraiture, one filled with tension, balance, and beauty. Wiley's art feels like a declaration. His canvases shout in color, scale, and confidence. The men and women he paints sit, stand, and pose with an undeniable sense of command. They are no longer background figures in someone else's history. They are the history. The floral backgrounds in his paintings bloom like living frames, wrapping the subjects in an aura that's both natural and spiritual. His work demands attention, forcing viewers to confront a version of Black identity that refuses modesty or apology. Every pose is an act of defiance, every detail an echo of power. Amy Sherald, on the other hand, approaches portraiture as quiet meditation. Her paintings are stripped of noise and distraction, allowing the humanity of her subjects to rise to the surface. She paints her figures in grayscale skin tones, not as a denial of race, but as a way to free her subjects from the limits of how blackness is usually read on canvas. In removing color, she adds meaning. In simplifying space, she deepens emotion. Her backgrounds float in soft hues, blues, greens, yellows, each one acting as a stage for reflection. Sherald's world is not about spectacle, it's about sensitivity, about what it means to simply exist and be enough. If Wiley's work says, "We are kings and queens," Sherald's work responds, "We are humans, complex, ordinary, infinite." His paintings perform identity, bold, dramatic, and larger than life. Hers explore the psychology of it, subtle, restrained, and introspective. One paints the roar of confidence, the other paints the breath of stillness. Even their color philosophies oppose each other beautifully. Wiley's palette is hyper-saturated, emerald greens, fiery reds, radiant blues, and skin tones so luminous they seem to glow. Every color in his world screams life. Sherald's is desaturated. Her grays whisper truth. Her tones are quiet, but they stay with you longer. It's like comparing a brass band to a lone cello. Wiley's work fills the room with sound, while Sherald's fills it with silence. Both move you, but in entirely different ways. It's like one is jazz and the other is soul, both rooted in the same heritage, but played through entirely different instruments. Their influence also extends beyond the studio. Wiley founded the Black Rock Residency in Dakar, Senegal, giving African and diaspora artists a platform to create, connect, and challenge global narratives. Sherald has used her growing success to support community programs and donate works to major institutions, ensuring that visibility becomes legacy. Of course, both artists have faced criticism. Some say Wiley's paintings lean too heavily on repetition, too decorative, too theatrical, too formulaic. Others argue Sherald's portraits are too still, too polished, too emotionally distant. But these criticisms often miss the larger truth. Both artists are answering the same question in different ways. How do you paint Black life with dignity, power, and truth in a world that still struggles to see it fully? Wiley answers by exploding history open, confronting centuries of exclusion with beauty and audacity. Sherald answers by reclaiming silence, reminding us that quiet is also a form of power. Both responses are valid, both are necessary. When we ask, who paints better, maybe we're really asking, which truth moves us more? Because in the end, Wiley's boldness is necessary to correct the archives. His art restores what was erased. Sherald's quietness is necessary to heal the gaze. Her art slows us down, asking us to look beyond stereotype and towards soul. One paints the dream of visibility, the other paints the peace of being seen. One creates myth, the other restores humanity. Together, they're building a visual language where Blackness is both monumental and intimate, historical and personal, universal and specific. Their portraits will outlive any debate because they're both doing something far more important than competing. They're rewriting how the world imagines Black identity, dignity, and beauty. They're expanding what representation means in art. So in the end, who paints better, Kehinde Wiley or Amy Sherald? Maybe the truth is this: Wiley shows us how the world should see us, radiant, regal, unstoppable. And Sherald shows us how we should see ourselves, calm, grounded, and infinitely human. And somewhere between those two visions lies the full picture of Black portraiture today, both myth and memory, both performance and presence, both the storm and the silence. Let me know who you think paints better, and why. Also like and subscribe, it really helps the channel.